Sweet surrender as I love, serve, and remember.
Good morning. Good morning. Okay, so we have the swimming in the infinite ocean. So years ago, back in the 90s, I used to go to the gym every Sunday, or every week, 6 days a week, didn't miss. I lived in West Hollywood, and back then when you went to the gym, people didn't have headphones on, so you actually talked to people. And so I was going there every day, so I was getting to, it's repetitive, and you get to know people. It's amazing how many stories I have just from that. And one of them is this woman who, I don't know how we got onto this conversation about, Joel Goldsmith. And so she said, well, I'm in this group, it's a Saturday group, and I think you would really fit in with this group. Would you want to come and join us on a Saturday afternoon for 2 hours? I said, well, I'll try it out. So I went, and it was a small group led by a teacher. His name is Zuriel. And there were six of us in there. I didn't know any of them, and I knew there's only one woman from the gym. So what he was teaching or facilitating was it was a student of Joel Goldsmith. So Joel Goldsmith called his path the path of the infinite way. So there's no boundaries, limits, limitations. She was a student of Joel's, loved it, felt that it was deepening her spiritually and it was wonderful, but she felt like emotionally there were still things that it wasn't touching, that it was still a little bit too heady or a little bit too removed from her emotional life, so it wasn't impacting that. So as she was doing the work, suddenly this teaching about how to heal the emotions started coming to her. So she contacted Joel and she said, this whole teaching is coming through me. And he said, yes, absolutely. And he 100% supported her. Her name is Barbara Mary Mall. I understand there's a book between a correspondence between them. I haven't read it. It's called, I think, A Royal Path. But so she had already transitioned by the time I was in this group, but she had cassette tapes of her classes that she would run about practices, first of all, understanding what was going on emotionally and practices to do. So we would go in this group and we would listen to the tape and we would talk about it, and it was so deep. Well, first of all, always meditation first, then listening to the tape, then talking about it. And it was so deep. You know, you just know when you're in depth. And so, but it was, because it was so focused, and we're only 2 hours a week, I never actually got to know Zuriel. I didn't know, I couldn't tell you. I know he was a classical flautist. And so in fact, this group was very different. I was in LA at the time, and I was going to Agape. Reverend Michael is this big, high energy teacher jumping up and down. The whole place is so full of energy, and you're just swimming in the vastness. And this was like the exact opposite. It was in the little living room. The gentleman leading it was very quiet, a little bit shy almost, gentle, 6 people. But you know, when you connect with spirit, it has many different forms. Many different forms. There's no one right form. So I know, the only thing I know about Zuriel is that he was a classical flautist. Beautiful classical flautist. So anyway, one day, so I'm in my life, and there was another gentleman, another person I met at the gym, who was a good-looking guy, and we were just talking, and so we were hanging out. Every once in a while, we would hang out. And so this one afternoon, I just had this intense desire to be held. I just said, I just want a hug. And I used the word hug. I just want a hug. So I was and I'll call him Tom. His name wasn't Tom. I called Tom, and I was calling him because I was hungering and thirsting for this hug. And while the phone is ringing, call waiting. You remember call waiting? Call waiting came in. And it was Zuriel, who has never called me ever and I feel like he has nothing to do with my life, so it was very odd. Hi, Harriet, it's Zuriel. Like, hi, Zuriel. What do you want? He said, I've been meditating for the last 45 minutes, and I suddenly got a very strong message from the presence within me to call you and to tell you that you shouldn't seek a hug outside of yourself, that it's all within you. And I'm like, oh, okay, thanks, Zuriel. Click. Tom had answered the phone. I said, never mind, Tom, click. Isn't that amazing? It reminds us, when we're looking at infinity, that it's spaceless. There's no space. You can't describe infinity through space. We're talking a lot about space through the web, the NASA webcam. That's what I call it. And so we're seeing more and more of space, but actually what infinity is transcends all space, no matter how vast it is, no matter how big it is, it still transcends space. That I had literally, this was such a specific moment. It wasn't like this had been going on all day. It was in that moment, I am saying in my inner world, I want to hug. He's picking that up. He's in a whole nother part of the city, and he's picking it up inside and calling me. There's no time and space. It was all happening right now in the moment by listening. The infinite nature at the center of our being is spaceless, timeless. I've mentioned this story before. I'll share it again. I'll share the quick version. The quick version is, I was one day in 1993 reading my journals from the past. I was reading it, I know it was 7 years. I was reading it from 7 years earlier, and in my journal I wrote a dream vision, because I'm not a dream writer, but I wrote this one down because it was very intense. And it was these two beings talking about my life. And the life that they described that I was going to have was exactly the life that I was living in 1993. And I'm like, well, how did they know? I've made a lot of decisions. I have free will, and I've made decisions every step of the way. How'd they know I was going to make all those decisions and end up in this place? And I happen to be reading it exactly as I'm living this life, because I don't go back and read journals generally. Timeless. Infinity is timeless. We understand things in a linear way, but infinity understands it all simultaneously. It transcends all time and includes all time, and it transcends all space and includes all space. I love the example from Reverend Michael, and many of you have heard me use it because I just love it so much because it's so clear. An ant who leaves its hole and is heading towards a sandwich. The hole is its past, it's left it, that's past tense. The sandwich is its future, that's future tense. And where it's walking is present tense. But when we're looking at it from above, transcending it, we see it all simultaneously. It's not a past, present, and future for us. We're seeing it simultaneously. This is this divine presence. Everything is happening simultaneously. The infinite nature of pure spirit. Oh my gosh, isn't this amazing that we are infinite beings? Awe and wonder for sure. We are timeless beings. We are spaceless beings. And then I just decided to look up infinite because I just wanted to see what other people had to say. And my favorite was the word measureless. It's not like a lot of time or a lot of space. It's measureless. You can't measure infinity. So the moment we try to measure infinity or give things to say we're out. We're in time and space then. So it's timeless, it's spaceless, and it's measureless. You can't compare it to anything else. As soon as you're in comparison, you're in form. You're in this world. You're in the finite. I just read yesterday, and I loved it, was a gentleman I know, and he was talking about, he knew somebody in the early 2000s who had done very well financially and was up in the 600 million mark. But then I guess there was some big financial explosion, and he said it's just like it evaporated. This 600 million just evaporated. And the reason why this gentleman was sharing it is because he just recently had this experience himself, that he, through some of his real estate deals, was in the 7 figures numbers. And he said, but suddenly it's just sort of dissolving. And he said the poorest person, I love this, the poorest person is the person who lives with their identity in time and space. When your identity is in time and space, you have a finite identity. So whether you have a lot of money and that's your identity, that's still finite. It's still temporary. Or a little money, that's not who you are. You are an infinite being of God. You are timeless, you are spaceless, you are measureless. No one can compare because there's nothing to compare. That's not the reality of our beingness. And the true wealth that we're going to be talking about this month comes from absolutely anchoring in this awareness that we are infinite beings right now and always will be for all eternity, timeless and spaceless. Whoever created so we're part of, for those of you who are new, we're part of the Center for Spiritual Living organization, and they've come up with these outlines for the year. And so the outline for this month is about finances. The theme for the year is living in everyday wonder, and this month is finances. And the way they intended, and I just love this so much, is to week by week unfold the talks like we do prayer or how we do treatment. Within Center, we call it, for those of you new, in Centers for Spiritual Living, we call it treatment, but it's prayer. It's how we have this way of praying. And the way we always begin our prayers with describing the infinite. Because if we're not starting there, we're immediately in poverty. Anything that we try to do after that is going to be work. But the moment we just align ourselves with this infinite nature, we're aligning ourselves already in truth. We're moving into right relationship. There's another aspect of the infinite that I want to share before we move on. Well, we're not moving on, that's all we're talking about today. But it's my last point about the infinite, and it's an important one. One of the things that New Thought really did well was to remove a lot of the personal aspects of the divine to get to the impersonal. And the reason being is because when it's personal, sometimes we have a place where it cuts off and something else begins. When it's infinite, it's always already. It's just an isness. It doesn't sometimes love. It doesn't sometimes have abundance. It's not sometimes infinite. It is always already infinite and eternal. It doesn't change. There is an isness to it. Are you familiar with the isness of spirit? So it's not something we talk with, it's just an alignment with what is. A religion that really aligns itself with this is Buddhism. It's just an isness. Buddhism talks a lot about just being. Shunryu Suzuki, who is one of my teachers, doesn't talk about talking to God or worshiping God, it's none of that. His whole life is just practicing day in and day out, being in alignment with what is. That's his life. I just align myself with what is, and from that comes harmony and peace and joy and all the other things that we talk about. That just is an effortless expression when we align ourselves with the isness of pure spirit. And so many of the New Thought writers were talking about this, like let's get into the principle of what we're speaking and not the personality. And the infinite is also incredibly personal. And that's also what I love about New Thought, because you can see in the teachers, even as they're teaching, Ernest Holmes, Joel Goldsmith, Katie, Emily, Katie. You read them, and there's talking principle, but then at the same time, they're bringing in this very personal sense. I'm like, I've been thinking a lot about this lately, the personal and the impersonal, because even as you align with the infinite, well, first of all, we all are different. So like Shunryu was totally about the isness, didn't have a personal relationship. But I think so many of us in Western culture that personal relationship is naturally intertwined with the isness. And just like those stories I gave about the hug, that was pretty personal, pretty specific to that moment in time and space, what was going on in my head. And that's true for every one of us. This presence and this power is very specific. So it's vast and infinite and specific. So it is personal. It is personal to you, to how you show up. It will speak in a language that resonates with you. I think of, y'all know the Bhagavad Gita? How many people know the Bhagavad Gita here? Ha! Love it. So many of you. So we know the Bhagavad Gita is from an Indian long mythological tale, the Mahabharata. And it's this explanation between Krishna and Arjuna about what God is. And I love it because he gives all these different paths. There's no one right to do, well, you can do it this way, or you can do it this way, or you can do it this way. And in fact, the Myers-Briggs, Carl Jung modeled a lot of his thinking on the 4 paths of God in Hinduism. But there's this great moment, as most of you know who've read Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna finally says, okay, you're ready. I am going to show you who I am. And he shows them the vastness of the universe. And it's awesome, but terrifying. I mean, just think if you saw everything that ever existed, all time, all space, all at once, single-handedly. It's a little overwhelming, right? This presence, it is a lot. So Arjuna's having this experience, and it's like, okay, enough. I need a singular, just come back to your regular self. I can handle that. I can handle truth through a single individual. And in many ways, that's what it is. The infinite, if we were walking around as the infinite ocean, we wouldn't even be able to make a decision because we're everything. I'm everything. This is great. I don't know, I just thought of this. There's this great video, and I cannot do it justice, but I just saw it yesterday again, and it makes me laugh every time. It's a little dog, and his parents, his mom and dad, and they want to see which way he's going to choose. So they just, all of a sudden, he's just standing there in between them, and they take off in opposite directions, and he goes, and that's what I think being in the infinite is like. You know, you're just going to go crazy with all these choices. Where do I go? Where do I go? We have to make choices. We have an individual expression for a reason. And we got to connect with that interior right relationship. I was on a retreat last week, and thank you, Reverend Jacqueline, and all of you for the service last week. It was wonderful. And the thing that came through in this retreat, which was so powerful for me, was right relationship. Being in right relationship. So as we go forth in this month, we begin with right relationship with the divine. And so for many of you, you need a whole reworking on your life with the divine, and that's fun, and it could be scary, and it's powerful. And then I know there are many of you who have been on this journey for decades. And the way I liken it to is when you go to a yoga class. It's the most miraculous thing to me. So you're doing whatever they're telling you to do, and I think I'm doing it right, and the yoga teacher comes over to me and goes, no, your hand should just go like this a little bit. And it doesn't seem that big. Like, oh yeah, that's the right way. And you can feel it through your whole body. But ultimately, it's because it's aligning, or what a chiropractor does. So even when we've been on this journey for so long, there's always tweaks. There's always like, am I in alignment? Am I in right relationship with the divine today? And so for my retreat, I was amazed at this chiropractic healing that God gave me in terms of moving a little bit more into right relationship. And just by that little shift, wow, I was like, whoa, this is awesome. It's like wanting to jump. And then, and so we're going to be going through the rest of the month, when we align with that infinite presence, the first thing is like, oh, I want to be in right relationship with everything. Because it feels so good. And so in every way, with other people, with myself, first of all, right relationship with myself, physically, emotionally, mentally, be in right relationship inwardly and outwardly, be in right relationship with money, as we're talking about this week, with health, with people, with our job, with our family, with our community, with this planet. I want to be in right, with chairs, with things. It's everything. I want to live a life of right relationship because it's having this constant chiropractic adjustment to total alignment, and it's pure joy. Yeah. And that happens when we begin with aligning ourselves with our infinite nature. Because in our infinite nature, it's already aligned, and we're just catching it. We're understanding what that is for us. Just like Arjuna, his teacher was Krishna. But every person in that myth had their own divine path. That was just his path that they happened to write about. Everyone has their own path. And it's up to us to find out what that is and to stand in it and to grow in it and invite people to share in it. One of my favorite couples that I met in Agape was a woman who, she was a Buddhist, really loved Vipassana, mindfulness meditation, and her whole life was like that. It was just very serene, peaceful, and she's a very even-keeled person. And, there's sparse, didn't like a lot of things. Her wife, who she's been with for 40 years, and they have the most harmonious, amazing marriage. Well, it was relationship and now marriage. Her wife loves the myths of Hinduism, and she has bright colors and things everywhere, and she has music playing and tells stories. Exact opposite style of how she likes to experience the infinite. And the two of them together love each other so deeply, and so the Buddhist will hang out with the Hindu style, and the Hindu style will hang out with do the mindfulness meditation, but they're very clear on what their path is, and it doesn't limit them at all because the source of their path is the same, which is the infinite. We can't know harmony if I have to know harmony because everyone has to be like me, like everyone has to have the same path I have. That's trying to find harmony externally. And the moment we try to find harmony, love, peace, joy, anything externally, we are out of alignment because we are now in the world of the temporary, yeah? Yes. I love having so many practitioners in this room. They're like, yeah, we know this. It's great. So my invitation for all of you, and I know many of you are just here to visit, so whether it's for the next week or for all month, is to really invite and ask yourself, do I need a chiropractic adjustment? Do I need a little yoga tweak in my relationship with the divine infinite within me? All of this is within. It's not out there, it's within. In that interior world, what is my right relationship, nobody else's, my right relationship with the divine? What does that look like? What does it feel like? It has to resonate with our heart. If it doesn't resonate with our heart and it's just mind, it's not resonating. What is it physically? On every level and dimension of my being, what is my relationship with my infinite nature? Because my infinite nature is where everything that I experience in human form starts from. It is our source for all life. You with me? Yeah. You up for it? Are you feeling a little bit more in your infinite nature here and now? Yeah. I hope so. Yeah. Minister. All right. Well, we're going to pray. And before we pray, so for those of you who are more newer to this practice, we begin our prayer with talking about the divine. So I often use God. I'm kind of but I know a lot of people are uncomfortable with God. The word does not matter. The infinite nature of pure spirit. I don't know, universe, energy, life, Allah, dog. We were giving names and foundations, and someone said dog. Whatever your word is that encompasses the infinite and eternal nature of pure spirit. So we always begin our prayers that way. And sometimes, and it can get by rote. It's like we're doing it all the time, over and over and over. And so sometimes we're like, oh, I want to be creative, and I try different things to make it sound a little different. But there's such a power in repetition. I've been in this class, which is very different than how we see the world. It's traditional. It's a traditional class. And it was interesting because the students and the teacher, who's also of this tradition, were saying they knew that God wasn't a God in the sky, but they couldn't actually figure out, all right, if God's not a God, a Father in the sky, what is God? Like they just couldn't even, like things that I feel like we sort of come to naturally. We've been doing it for so long we don't even think about. So I even said to them, I have to tell you, it's like, I know what it feels like to completely, like people speak another language. I said, well, in our teaching, we have our fundamental principles that there's one, and it's in, through, and as all creation, but never absorbed by that creation. That's our first principle. It's transcendent of time and space, and yet in all time and space. And they just stared at me like I was speaking Chinese. They're like, okay, so anyway, and I thought, wow, we say this over and over and over, and we think, oh, everybody knows this, or it's so normal, or it gets boring, but it's so profound. I'm sitting there, I'm like, this is so profound, I want to share it so much. And And then Bruce Lee, I just read this quote from Bruce Lee, and I just love it. Now, forget the fear in this quote. It begins with fear. I'm not talking about the fear, but I love the essence of it. And the essence is, or what he said, was the person I fear is not the person who's done 10,000 kicks one time. The person I fear is the person who's done one kick 10,000 times. That's everything. The repetition over and over goes deeper and deeper and deeper into our soul to the point we don't even know it's happening because we're so used to saying it. We say it so much, we don't even know how much it's become us. So it feels like it's just repetition and it has no meaning. But in fact, that's where the deepest meaning is. That was the person where that made him like, that's a powerhouse, is that person who's done one kick 10,000 times. That's where the power comes. So we can try all these different things, but the more you know your right relationship, the more you stand in that right relationship, and you live it every single day, you become that power. You become that power, and our prayers then resonate with that power. So let's pray together with this consciousness. So though we begin as we always begin, and there's nothing new, I'm not saying it in any creative or unique way, and yet the truth of which it is pointing to is awe-inspiring. And actually, since it's just one of these days, can I invite the ministers and practitioners in the room to please stand and just join for the consciousness and the commitment that you all have made? So I know we all stand together in consciousness once we recognize that there is only one power, one presence. One power, one presence in, through, and as the entire cosmos, and yet transcends the entire cosmos. This power and this presence is infinite and eternal. It does not come, it does not go. There is no place where it stops and something else begins. It is the only presence. It is the only power, and it includes all the various forms, all the different paths, all the billions and billions of galaxies, of stars, every grain of sand, every type of tree, every type of rock. It is all life. It is all animals and plants, and it is who I am and who we are. Standing in this room, sitting in this room, online, anyone who can hear my voice, we are aligned here and now with the awareness that this infinite nature, this powerful, loving, infinite, creative, abundant, joy-filled, harmonious, beautiful light and life of pure spirit is who and what we all are now. We can never separate ourselves from it. We can never walk away from it. It is who we are. We were birthed from this place and we will return to this place. It is who we are now. Every atom and cell of our being is this eternal and infinite light, this infinite and eternal love, this infinite and eternal presence. We are it now. Right now, our beautiful body, our emotional body, our mental body, every aspect of our being is in a creative and unique expression in its own personal way as every one of us, every single one of us. And so we celebrate our uniqueness even as we come together and feel our oneness and know our oneness that is below the world of appearances, that goes so much deeper, and it's into that wellspring, into that infinite wellspring that is beyond our human imagination, beyond what we can say, hear, taste, and touch, and yet it is closer to us than our very breath. It is listening to us every single day, in every moment. It is responding to us. It is hearing us, even as we are hearing it and listening to it. And so today I give thanks here and now for this power and this infinite nature revealing itself in its right relationship as every one of us. That every one of us is stepping more and more into that right relationship that is specific to us. Excuse me. we say yes to it. We are fearless. There's nothing to fear because there's nothing other than this one life, this one good, this one power, this one abundance, and we are it now. And so I just stand in that with all of us together in this moment, saying that this right relationship is moving mountains. This repetition of right relationship is healing old wounds that we didn't even know needed to be healed. This right relationship is healing relationship with ourselves that we didn't even know needed to be healed. This right relationship is healing our relationship with money in ways that we didn't even know needed to be healed. We are in this power, in this presence of the infinite, as we claim and accept right relationship with God, ourselves, and all life. And in this, we know that only good is the result. We stand in this good, we are this good, and we thank God for this good. In deep abiding gratitude, I invite us all to say together now, and so it is. Amen and amen.
I walk in God in all I do. I walk in God in all that I say.